episode 2 of Games Every Designer Should Play, a podcast that explores what aspiring and seasoned designers can learn from some of the greatest games of all time. I'm Stuart Lilford, lecturer in game design, and I'm joined as usual by
Adrian Mills. I'm a lecturer in game design and an independent game developer.
Hello, it's David, lecturer in game design and a bit of an artist now and then.
In each episode, we'll be discussing one essential game and what we can learn from it. And at the end of the episode, one of us will reveal to the others the game they've chosen for the next episode. Will it be beloved by all, or could it be controversial? You'll have to listen to the end to find out. And it's David's turn to choose at the end of today. So we'll see what you suggest.
I think I've got a pretty good one.
Yeah, well, up until... You weren't sure at all.
Yeah,
you kept
saying I definitely didn't choose it like a day ago.
Okay,
but I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah,
it's okay.
David's choosing the one for next episode, but for this episode, the game we'll be discussing is Cocoon. Oh, you joined in.
We got all of
that.
Game.
Yes, joining in.
I brought it out. Cocoon, if you didn't hear.
Fair warning. This podcast will likely contain spoilers for the game, and you'll probably get more out of it if you've played. So if you haven't played Cocoon, why not pause the episode and go and play it?
Yeah, go play it. I mean, it was on the Xbox Pass or something like that.
On Xbox Game Pass, and PC Game Pass as well.
Or if you don't care about spoilers, don't bother. We'll also, because we're academics, I'll try and do my best to include some of the sources that we've discussed in today's episode in the show notes. But for Adrian, you've got a few notes on Cocoon.
Yeah,
you want to mention?
I have indeed. So this was it's a new game. We did Portal last week. Obviously, that's nearly sort of 18 years old. This was released in September last year. It's by Geometric Interactive. It's directed by Jeppe Carlsen. So if you don't know the name Jeppe Carlsen, you might know the two games that he worked on prior to this, which were Limbo and Inside, where he was the designer of those. He sort of moved up to be director.
Great games.
Yeah, when he set up the studio. And he set up the studio with composer Jacob Schmid and art designer Ian Kidd. I need my better glasses on. I can't read this. This was originally conceived as a side-scrolling game, if you didn't know.
I did not actually.
Which actually, if you think about Playdead's previous
it was going
Inside
to be
and Limbo, but they found that it wasn't the main conceit and the main concept and the main core mechanic within the game didn't work as well in a 2D perspective, so they switched to that 3D. I can see that, That's what they went to. It's centered around the idea of spatial relationships between interconnected realms and how they could be used in puzzles. That was the original design sort of ethos, and he was interested in sort of pulling that out and what he could do. It was very well received. It was nominated in lots of awards for last year. The Golden Joystick Awards got 3 nominations, Game Awards 2, 6 at the DICE Awards, 8 in the Game Developers Choice Awards. Independent Games Festival, it was nominated 3 times, and at the BAFTA, it was nominated 6 times.
Wow.
So it's a well-liked game. It's 89% average on Metacritic and 98% of critics on OpenCritic recommend this game.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So, as developers, as designers, what can we learn from Cocoon?
Who's going to start then?
Well, is Playdead not a company anymore? Because they were the company.
I do believe they're still going, yeah.
But he's left and he's doing his own thing.
Yes, my understanding. Yeah, I don't know what they're working on because Inside was 2015, 2016.
It was a long time ago now.
Yeah, some time back. Because he left just after Inside came out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens there. Myself and David had yet to play Cocoon when you
had
suggested this. So, David, what did you think of the game?
I'd seen like a very brief trailer ages ago because one of my friends recommended it with telling me that it was developed by this guy. And I saw the main mechanic, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I mean, overall, I love the game. The environment and the main mechanic, which I don't know if one of you want to intro that or I can
we'll
go
talk
into
about
it.
That
Yeah. But the main mechanic of like hopping into these different worlds and then carrying the worlds around as you're going in and out of them was just visually as just amazing. Like the transition you get when you're kind of swapping between the worlds.
That is very nice.
And
particularly coming out of one, I felt was nicer. You like the whole like whoosh.
Yeah. And I think the main takeaways I got from this was just like the amount of polish that it had. Like it was just a really polished, clean game.
6.5 years in development.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah. I think for me, and I think this is also true of Limbo and Inside, maybe more Inside, is just the visual style and art direction overall for all three of these games really is incredible. And what I like about them is that there's no, like, it just launches you in with no explanation and just allows you to kind of piece things together if you want, or just don't bother and just go along with it. Like in Inside, there's so many weird moments in that where you have to kind of piece together this kind of dystopian society and like what's happening and all these different weird little things that are going on, and this game's no different. You've got these just huge structures and just like random things moving about in the background and just all this kind of thing in terms of the art directions.
Very alien designs.
Well, I mean, it's Erwin Coe is the art designer, and there's a bit about found what he was talking about it, and it's based upon, so from an art design perspective, it uses Art Deco and brutalism.
Okay.
So it's based on those kind of things he used it because of those towering structures, Art Deco, the sort of vertical lines and the upward. We've seen that in BioShock and games like that. Yeah. So it's that vertical space, especially as you're looking down on the game constantly. It's those structures that just sort of go up off the top of the screen. But the brutalism for those sort of plain blocks and just like that kind of harsh environment.
It's very sort of low poly, stylized, but it has like really beautiful shaders and lighting.
Yeah, it's really good
in the world.
But it was also inspired very much so by animals, very, very organic.
You can see
those things like arthropods, praying mantises, lobsters, spiders, jellyfish, starfish, manta rays. All those kind of things are very evident within it, and it kind of uses that organic design to sort of as this kind of sort of put that kind of weird, almost alien-esque sort of animal style.
It like applies the mechanical to the organic. A lot of the from a lot of them, like the little, like even like platforms that you like move along. They've just got legs. Some of them. You pull them along and they just start walking.
Just parts of the terrain are just kind of fleshy and gross and like.
And it also depends on what world you're in as well, because each world has its own very own, and it's got its own core mechanic as well. So how you navigate them and how how you utilize the mechanics in each world is different. And that kind of leads me on to one thing I do want to discuss. So before we get onto it, was the controls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think the controls.
Did we use controller?
Yes.
Yeah, I use gamepad.
Yeah, I did as well.
So the controls it's just one stick, one button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everything.
Yeah.
It's the KISS rule, which is
keep it simple.
Make sure each band member's face paint is visually distinct.
Oh, that one.
No, sorry, not that KISS rule. Yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple.
One just movement and one button.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it.
I mean, it's old school, almost 8-bit old computer design. It's just a stick and a button. And I think they get so much out of that because you tap for certain things and you hold it down for others.
Yeah.
And that's and sometimes you hold it down and you like those ones you have to pull. There's certain. It's kind of weird to describe this because the game is almost sort of, it doesn't want to be described because it's so simple. It's a game. If you reduce it down to its component parts, it'll be like, oh, is that it? But that does it a disjustice. I think
it's hard to really describe it in a way that, like you said, does it justice.
Yeah. Because the game starts off very simply. You just to give you some context, what the game is, you play a little bug.
Yeah.
You're like a little bug, with a beetle. I think you're kind of beetle.
Almost like a cicada, like with little wings on the back.
Yeah, little wings.
And you pop out of a little cocoon right at the beginning.
Yeah. And you're left. There's no overarching. There's no sort of overt story in this.
No.
You're not told anything. It's just there you are, and you start moving, and you press A on the on the gamepad, and when you can interact with stuff, and those may be sort of little switches and pads on the floor. They may sort of open bridges. And you'll find is these kind of globes. And when you put them on certain objects, you can then fly into them. Yeah. And then the transition is that they have worlds within those globes. There are worlds within worlds. But then you find globes within those worlds that you can carry and sort of pull out of those. And then you can then set that on stuff and then go into that world. But at certain points you have worlds within worlds, and you're carrying globes and they're really cleverly, the way they do it is like when you're carrying a world within world, because they're sort of colour, like there's green, orange, purple, when you're carrying a world that's got a world in it, there's a little sort of orange glow or a purple glow,
so you can see what's inside.
You know what's there, what you're carrying around, and all this is done like almost transparently. The gamepad controls just disappear.
Yeah.
Because it's just so simple. You just know you click the button, you tap, you hold down to fly out, to fly in, and that's kind of it. And you're thinking, oh, they can't get much out of this, but you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. The interactions with the environment is what changes throughout the game. It doesn't give you any extra. Well, it does give you extra abilities, and like what orb you're carrying depends on what those abilities are throughout. But yeah, the whole kind of the orbs thing or globes and the worlds within worlds thing just lent itself to some very good puzzle design within this game, within Cocoon, and just like moments like with the moment where you realise, oh, I can take orbs inside of other orbs, and then you're having to kind of do this multi-layered kind of mind-boggling but it never felt like did anyone get stuck at any point with this?
There was only a couple of points for me.
Yeah.
I think one bit was when you were on a launch pad and you had to drop the ball midair.
Yes.
Because there was nothing to really indicate that apart from...
I got that straight away.
No, I got stuck on that.
I saw that one straight away because
right.
I thought, that's what I've got to do. There was another one, I think, which was where, because there's certain puzzles as well where you've got these blocks in the path and you have to sort of guide the little sort of, there's a floating thing that follows you.
Yeah.
But then
security.
Yeah, it's like them. And so when you take that to the blocks, it kind of opens them, and that's fine. But there are these barriers which eat the thing, so you have to go back and get it again. And there was a bit where I just couldn't figure out how to get one past it, and it was like, but if you, the thing with the way you jump from is you can go past and into a sort of different jump pad.
Yeah.
Which will then, when you jump from another jump pad, will take you forward, and you can drag it through that way.
With that one, I was like, I got stuck on one similar to that, and then there was a moment where, if I take the security bot into this orb and it dies there, then I can carry that orb through the checkpoint.
You have to like store it basically,
and then restore it and bring it back out again. And it was like, there's that moment of, what if I kill it inside this orb? And it's like, because the level design, just to kind of briefly, it's very good at gating you away from sections that are not of any use, or not relevant. So you're only ever able to explore so much of this environment. You never feel like you're walking across this sprawling landscape, not wondering kind of, is that useful? Is that useful? So if you can, because like, even though you can go in and out of these worlds, it's usually a small section that you are limited to, because the game doesn't want you just getting lost, essentially. Yeah,
you generally can't backtrack into areas that is going to confuse you and stuff like that.
And that's one of the things I do want to bring up, because that's that controlled, what you can call, maybe called controlled design. So the game, like you say, it doesn't, it sets its puzzles are limited. Its puzzles are, they're in an area. Everything you need to pass that puzzle is there.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about, do I need to get something from 2 areas back to bring it forward? There's never any of that.
Yes.
It's essentially this can be, this can be gotten through. That you just have to figure out a way to do it. Everything's in front of you. How do you utilize these simple mechanics? Where do you put stuff? It's like the thing where and so I thought that was excellent, because I think as a puzzle game, which this is, one of the worst things in puzzle games is not knowing what elements you need to solve something. It's a problem I have with like point and click adventures. Point and click adventures,
bad point and click.
Yeah, bad point and click adventures. You've got all these pieces of inventory sort of thing. It's like, do I need to stick the fish
You're
on the
pog?
You're
trying to use every single one on the same thing until it works.
Fish on the pog to spin the wheel round that'll then drop the acid on the lock.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
If you played point and click, you've got to the point where you are using every item on every other item.
You're not even thinking about it.
No.
You're just like, does this work? Does this work?
Yeah.
Does this work?
Or even games like Phoenix Wright. Where Phoenix Wright, and you're like, you've got to press.
Yeah.
For those who haven't played Phoenix Wright, it's a law game sort of thing. You have to press or present evidence, and it's like, there's a lines of dialogue, and you're like, you have to present the right kind of one at the right point, and you're like,
objection.
I know I need to use this, but the judge keeps going, that's not relevant there.
Yeah.
It is. So this doesn't do that.
No.
This is just you have the elements in front of you to pass it, and I think that's really quite clever. I've seen some comments going, it's a bit limited, but I think that's a really good, for what we can take from this from a design point of view, is like the slimline, the stripped down nature of this is like, here you go, everything is
what
here.
makes it so good.
Yeah, and I think if it hadn't have restricted you, like I might have given up on some of these puzzles. Like I would have been like, well, I know that I'm not sure what to do next.
Yeah.
And the amount of like areas I can explore and it's too vast, and I'm like, I would be like, I can't be bothered to search all these three different worlds, these three different globes.
Yeah, if they were open worlds.
Yeah, exactly. I would be like, no way.
I remember one bit towards the end in the purple orb where it opens up the big gate and you have to go back into the green world.
Yeah,
I remember that. Like, if they hadn't have blocked off the previous area, I would have been so confused, because you still had the white orb off in the distance. If they hadn't have limited it just to those two orbs in the gate, then I would have. I would have been very lost.
And that's, I think, something, obviously, because he designed Limbo and Inside, and that's something, especially with Inside, that's what that game does as well. The puzzles in that game, they're all
self-contained.
Like the way you get past this is here.
Yeah,
just
do it.
Figure out what you got to do and then do it. Yeah, there's a lot, obviously, Inside with the 2D platform, the jumping, there's a lot more physics based.
Yes.
But it's still, you can get past this because you have to, because we've designed it. We know you can. You just have to figure out what we want you to do. So there is that sort of sense of, this is not a game about player expression. You could argue this is a game about designer expression. You just follow what they've told the steps are. There are no.
But ultimately, that's what a puzzle game should be, really. And that's what it is, a puzzle game.
It's that kind of puzzle game,
And I think, it really, like going back to that KISS rule, keeping it simple. It's just that one mechanic, that one thing it's not one mechanic, but it's one input. And so by kind of limiting that input, it does that same kind of thing. Limiting the area you can do, limiting the number of things that you can do, allows you to kind of have those. Well, okay, I've done that. That won't work. But what if I try this? And it allows you to have those, what I call them, eureka moments. Where you go, aha!
Yeah. And the good thing about that as well is that the way the sound is used. Actually, wanted to come into the sound.
Because I wanted to talk about sound
because the way the music will just come up a little bit, and you do when you're on the right track.
Yes.
You'll hear a tiny melody where you've got the right like combination of orbs, or you're going in the right direction or whatever, and you'll play it and you'll be like,
so you've done the right thing. And so from a design point of view, for taking what we take from these games, player feedback. Feedback in this game is great, because you're getting, I've done it, I've got it, I'm on the right track, because there is only one solution to these puzzles. That or whatever you hear,
and it's not even like you hear it when you solve the puzzle, or you doing or if you pick up an orb, say, it's not like, that's correct. It's like when you're walking,
you're on the
way to something, but you have to be carrying the right orb, and it'll be like, yes, you were on the right, you've got it correct. So it's just like that little audio cues.
It's like giving a
right.
treat to a pet or something. Like you're playing that little sound when they've done the correct thing, and kind of training your brain.
What's that called?
Oh god,
what is it, Pavlov's dog or
something like that?
Every time the bell rings, you get
that's what it's like.
They start to slide because they associate it.
So it gives you like a tiny reward, like you hear that nice little tune and you're kind of like, yes, I did it.
Which is really good, because the overall sound design is excellent in this. It's really good, the music's really nice, but those moments where you hear that just interacting with you doing the right thing is, so many puzzle games just like, I don't know, am I doing the right thing? Am I? This, you're like, I know I am. And that's, as a player, you feel the benefit of that immediately.
And there's not a lot of things in this that are act as rewards. There's like no collectibles necessarily. It's only like unlocking new areas.
Ancestors.
Yeah, but
they're like a side. they're like an optional side thing.
I went and did them all because I wanted the 1,000 achievement.
I missed I didn't get them all. I got a few.
In the world, you see these like weird little sort of like black orbs dotted around the ground, and that kind of hints you towards these secret little areas where you can go and find these what they call moon ancestors. And it just kind of acts as little achievements and kind of cool things to find in the world.
And I'm not. For those who probably want to play this sort of thing, do we need to discuss that really stupid secret? Well, not stupid, but that really hidden secret ending.
I didn't watch it. I heard about it, though.
Yeah. So there's a secret ending. There's a few places in the game where you get this little drone that kind of helps you out, and you can kind of take it to different locations and it opens paths. But on those spots, you have to put an input of like there's five different signs that you can run over.
Yeah.
And that's how you unlock the drone. However, if you input a different code like 3 times on every single one of those areas and then complete the game, you get a cutscene that's like, 20 seconds long, if that?
Yeah, and it's basically other creatures carrying worlds in the universe.
I thought you got it if you unlocked all the moon ancestors.
No,
that's what I thought.
How do you know what the code is meant to be?
I looked it up.
Well, basically, in the world, supposedly, I've watched a video because there's no way you're going to get this. But there's little blue triangles in the world, and when you see them, they're in the code. They're the actual thing, and you spot them like on the bridges and stuff, and on the walls.
Those, but I never put.
That's what they are.
Together.
I don't think I have.
But just to come back to the the things what you have to, because there's certain points in it. There's, like they said, there's these 5 shape like antennas. I don't know what you
it's
call
like
them.
a weird.
They're like harmonic.
They're just
things.
little symbols.
The little symbols, But you have to walk into them, don't you?
Yeah.
But the way that they hide the order of those in the environment, I thought was really clever.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they're on the wall. There's a really good one where they're in the reflection of
I like
water.
that. Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of like The Witness and how that has. It sometimes uses like these environmental ways to solve.
Maybe
puzzles.
That'll be another.
Maybe it will.
The puzzle games.
We'll just rename this the puzzle games every designer should play. Yeah.
Because good puzzle games are very well designed.
Yes,
they come from that.
Yeah.
But so that use of the environment as well, just to. Because that's the thing this game does. There's no, like I said, there's no narrative. There's no cutscenes. There's no pop-ups of voice or nothing. There's no talking. There's no dialogue.
No,
none of that. So the narrative itself is very minimalist. And you kind of like you are wondering what the hell is going on for a lot of it. You're like, I'm this little bug going around opening puzzles and going from world to world, but who knows?
Happy to do it.
Yeah. But so it does all this. It tells all its story, and I suppose I don't know. Does anyone know what the story is properly?
So I think I finished the game, and the first thing I did was Google
what does this mean?
What is it actually about? And it's somewhat to like obviously the orbs are different worlds, and the moon guardians. Like they're called moon ancestors. Yeah. So like there's like worlds and moons and like.
Are they giving birth to these worlds,
at the end it's like this like little galaxies kind of being birthed almost from
out of a cocoon
because right at the end your character goes into like, do they go into something? I can't remember.
They
turn into this weird creature with a big eye, and then all of the worlds sort of start to get sucked out of each other because
almost like you start off, you're a sperm and you have to kind of get you collect these eggs on the way, and then eventually you give birth to this kind of new galaxy. But on the way, you're tested by what I wanted to talk about, the boss fight.
I was going to say that.
We've got to get to the boss fights.
Because it's a puzzle game with boss fights, which feels a little weird.
but the boss fights are puzzles.
Yes. But they're kind of more intense puzzles.
They're intense puzzles, and you have to get them right. And they come in, there's different sizes, and they usually sort of bookend a sort of chapter, don't they? They kind of a sort of section when you kind of got to a point, and you kind of open them up. You kind of get sort of sights of them beforehand in the environment.
Yeah. What happens is you kind of, when you find the new orbs, they're being guarded by these creatures basically.
Yeah.
And you kind of wake them up, and they go inside of the world. you have to navigate your way through it, and then the very sort of last bit is kind of finding that creature and then fighting it in a sort of arena, effectively, like an enclosed area.
So sometimes they're very odd how they work.
Yeah.
But again, they use that single, they don't introduce any new mechanics.
No.
Sometimes they do. For the player, but they introduce new world mechanics.
Yeah.
So the world, there's things that you can do which are different, but not you as a player so much
I felt like typically like the boss fights, they showed you some like a new. It's not maybe one example is the one where you if you pick up this orb, and when you press it, you swap, you like transport to the other, like teleport. That's new. That's not done outside of the boss fight.
Yeah.
It's like a brand new thing that's introduced.
The one where you're flying around as well, that's slightly different as well. Like pick up.
Yeah.
So it kind of, each boss fight just has its own little.
And there's the one where you're doing the witches from Ocarina of Time, batting a thing back and forth. Batting the energy back and forth.
That felt really cool.
It does feel really good. I mean, it felt good in Ocarina of Time when you were doing it, and any game where you actually bat energy back.
I was thinking more Dragon Ball Z when they've got
one thing
kind of
one thing related to that feeling good as well. Like when a lot of the time in this game, when you're playing with a controller, you get like the vibration feedback as well.
Yeah.
So like when you kind of break parts of the boss, or you do something right or whatever, you'll get that vibration, which like you know the sort of feedback to the player to they've done this action, that sort of thing.
I couldn't decide whether I enjoyed the boss fights or not. Especially one of the teleporting one. I kept messing up.
That was the only one that
the teleporting one, I think all of them took me about 2 or 3 goes, but the teleporting one, after the second go, I realised that what was happening was I was making it harder for myself because I was trying to rush it. As soon as you slow down and you just go, I'm in the clear and I know I'm going to teleport there in a moment, because it's instant.
Yeah.
So as soon as he comes over, I just teleport and safe. As soon as you get into that mindset of don't rush, just take your time on this, and I walk through it.
But man, I started getting, I nearly rage quit, honestly. But one of them I did on the first go. I think the one where you start flying around with that one I did all right. But the teleporting one I really struggled with. One of them at one point turned into like a bullet hell almost.
Yes, yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, but
was it the flying one, or
it might have been the flying one. There's basically like all these bullets start coming out at you.
Oh wait, no, that's the one where you grab a plant and then it's shooting water and it propels you into the air. Kind of that was fun.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I couldn't decide whether I thought this was.
You're enjoying your peaceful little
game. Yeah. I'm like, puzzle game. I don't need to think about it too. Well, I do need to think about it, but I don't need to kind of rush in and think about what I'm supposed to do.
It gave a bit of stimulation though. It's kind of like, because it's quite slow paced for a lot of it, and then you get that kind of contrast where
I guess it comes back to the conversation we had about Portal, where we were talking about its pacing and. Adrian, you made the point about it introduces time-based puzzles, even though it's like it's the same set of things that you have to do, but because there's a time pressure,
it feels
fight. Or in certain puzzles that have like moving parts and you have to do certain things in a set amount of time, just increases that intensity. Like adding that time pressure increases the intensity, even though mechanically you're just doing the same stuff you've been doing, but now you've got to do it under a time pressure. It just it makes it feel more exciting when you do it almost.
I like how they did the deaths as well in this. Like instead of just dying, the boss basically grabs you and it throws you out of the world.
Yes,
and you have to go back into it and then back into the arena.
I did like that.
That was really cool. Yeah.
We never felt. You didn't have to kind of.
You didn't get a big you die.
Yeah, you never die in this.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't die. And that's one of the part of the controlled environments and stuff. There's no way to actually be killed.
But it didn't feel too punishing when you were lost in through a boss fight.
Yeah, because you just went back in and then there was a little sort of slope and you walked straight back into it.
And then you did it's not. It's never. But like when you've done that 15 times. God,
did you?
I really honestly, the teleporting one. I really struggled because I kept forgetting to teleport. I was so focused on getting because on the teleport bit it shows you where you're going to teleport to.
Yeah.
It's like a thing that it's like what Shadow Link It mirrors your movement, and then you teleport and it swaps.
Yeah.
And I kept focusing on where that was and forgetting, I'm about to get hit by the guy, and then he throws you out of the world. I just got real.
You're too busy trying to attack it, and
that's what I mean. Once you enter that, you get that Zen state of going, I know exactly. I know how this controls now. And I think that's the thing with the boss fights, is that it takes you 1 or 2 goes just to get those new mechanics, and then I was usually the third go. I was like, right, and then I walk through them. I never really had much of a problem with them, because it was just a case of, right, what's the new thing? Okay, I'll get it wrong. I get it, and then right, fine.
It's because we're used to Souls games, and that's the whole.
Yeah,
the whole premise.
I think that is a good design. Yeah, it's a good design thing. It's like, okay, what does this boss do?
Yeah.
Resign yourself to dying a couple of times, unless you're very lucky.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in another episode, I'm sure. Yeah.
But that does the same thing. This is the same thing.
Well, if you hear how frustrated I got at this one boss in this puzzle game, make me play Dark Souls, and oh my god, it's just going to be a rant about how I kept rage quitting.
The thing is, if you want to veto it, we have 2 people that want to play Souls games. So
yes, it's going to happen at some point. I did want to talk about I was going to talk about this in the Portal episode, but affordances, right? So affordances in terms of game design, an affordance is something where you look at an object and you understand how to use it by its design. So an example would be a door with a handle on it that you have to pull the door to open it. Or if it hasn't got a handle, it's got like one of those flat metal plates, and you're like, oh well, that's a push door. I know I need to push that. And then so in video games, they have their own affordances. I think certain things in video games, you see them and you instinctively know how to interact with that. So like a ladder, if you see a ladder in a video game, you're like, oh, a ladder, that affords climbing, I can climb that. Or a red barrel in a video game, what does that do? When you blow it up when you shoot it. Even though I'm pretty sure someone told me there's like an episode of Mythbusters or something where they attempted to get that to actually happen in real life.
It won't.
It never. It's not
artistic license.
Yeah. It doesn't actually. That doesn't happen. But video games. And so what a lot of the times video games will teach you the affordances of the world. So with this one, it'll teach you the affordances associated with the different orb powers. So when you see the beginnings of an orange bridge, that affords the orange orb, and it shows you the bridge. Or if you see those weird, so the green orb, you have it like, how would you describe that? It's like a weird platform,
like an ethereal ghost pillar.
That's a really good description. Yeah.
So it's basically objects that you can pass through them when they're in the ghost form. So it'll kind of push you upwards through them, and when it's in its solid form, you can stand on top of it, activate the orb, and it will kind of lower you down like an elevator. That's basically how that works.
So when you see this ethereal ghost mist, you associate that with the green orb, or the little white circles with the particle effect.
I mean, and all of the orbs are linked to the colors. So like you have an orange orb that, if you go to the orange platform, you're going to find this invisible platform. The green orb, you have the green pillars.
But you also, the green one also does the sort of transporty ones as well. They flick from platform to platform.
So it keeps the same mechanic of you can pass through and up the platform, but it will move at the same time. So you have to kind of time where you're wanting to get off, like if you want to get off on the top or the bottom.
And then you also get those the ones when it kind of becomes quite complex, where you get those ones you put the orb into, like the little creatures or the little mechanical robot thing, and then they follow you around, but you have to get them through certain parts because they can't fit, because there's some of the pillars you can fit through but you can't carry an orb through. So you have to work out how you're going to get the orb around.
So you have these little drones which act as keys in different parts of the puzzle.
I like the little noises they make. They're quite cute, aren't they?
Yeah. And you have to kind of lead it through all the different elements and puzzles.
Yeah.
So I felt more attached to those than the weighted companion cube from Portal.
I did too. Very much so.
I would feel bad if the game made me incinerate one of those drones.
But there's also as well, I think when it gets quite complex towards the end is the ones where you've got the lasers. And the lasers are shooting out of the world into another world through a thing.
I really loved that.
Yeah, that was quite good, actually.
So you've got to pull, because there's certain parts you can pull. You have these objects you can pull, which kind of like I don't know what you call them. Like you get up by the orb and you pull it sort of along.
Fleshy orbs. I don't know.
They're like switches, but you have to kind of like pull them along a little bit, and then they sort of lock into place. But these ones you can sort of aim these lasers, but you have to put an orb in the middle of it. So then you realise that when an object passes through an orb, it goes into the world that orb is.
So you have to think on like 2 or 3 different levels, thinking about like where the laser's going to go in, where's it going to come out, what's it going to shoot into.
Yeah, there's a cool bit where, because the way you travel in between the orbs, there's like a puddle, a big pond,
and that shows you
the world. So like, if you fire something in one world and quickly get out of it, you can see the bullet pass over the puddle in the reflection of the water.
There's actually one cool bit with that where, the drone puzzles where you have to kind of stop them from being captured.
Yeah.
There's one bit where there's a laser that's moving along a platform, or not a laser, like the little yellow capturing device.
Yes.
And when you go out of the world, you can
you
actually
watch
see
it
that
move across. Yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
Basically, you have to kind of get your drone out of the way, go out of the world so it's not captured, go back in once the lasers move out of the way, and then you kind of continue, which is just a really cool visual effect.
Yeah, that was cool for you. But the puzzle where it's like 3 different orbs, like layers of orb. And you've got you're firing a bullet from one, and it's passing through 3 different layers.
And you've got to wait, like in the second one, for something to hit, and then it changes the platform so you can go up.
Yeah.
Because you're in the green world. It gets. And I've one of the sort of complaints I've seen about this is some people that say about portals and like, it feels like a great tutorial and they wanted more complexity. But I don't agree with that, because I think it got complex enough.
Yeah,
I think it ended at the right point.
Yeah.
I think they know when to finish. They had that with Limbo, maybe not so much, but Inside especially, they got it right with Inside.
Yeah.
They knew the ending to Inside. I'm not going to spoil that here, but if you haven't played Inside, that's another game you really should go play.
100%.
And if you go play this as well, but it builds to a satisfying conclusion and an ending that although you may sit there and scratch your head a little bit, going, I'm not quite sure what happened. From a gameplay perspective, I was more than satisfied.
Yeah.
I was like, that was just an experience that I was so glad I went through, and
and even like towards the end, there's those puzzles, like you said, that it opens up a weird gate, like you were talking about earlier.
It's basically a portal that you can walk through rather than having to sort of teleport.
You don't teleport into the orb, you can walk through a gate into it, but that leads to the situation where I've got a green orb here that I can teleport into, but also I can take the green orb into the green world.
So
it's inside
and
of
then
itself.
You get the point where you have a green orb that also has a green orb inside of it and an orange orb, and you're just like, oh god,
what? Then you try and teleport out of the green orb, but because you're in the green orb, you basically end up. It's so weird.
But then that leads to a great puzzle design, because then you actually use that to leave it in a certain place, so you then go to a jump point.
Yes,
then
there is that.
Because you've got to get it through like I said, you've got to get it through the gaps, but you do that by putting it somewhere else, and then
it's great. Yeah,
it's very good. I don't know. Is there anything else that people want to?
I thought that using the game's menu to denote progress was a good thing. So basically, if you quit the game and you come back to it, it shows you statues of the different bosses.
Yes.
And it shows you how many you've done and how many you've yet to defeat. And I thought that was a nice touch, actually. And I think it would be good to see more games where, like, when you jump in, it shows you progress, and it kind of also reminds you of where you're at. Okay, I'm coming back to this game. Obviously we played it over presumably a short space of time. The game's not that long, really. It's 6 hours,
if that.
If that. But I thought using that to show player progress was quite a nice touch.
I think it does that as well. Lies of P.
Okay.
Lies of P does that as well when you come back to it as you progress through it. So the Lies of P title screen has the sort of heart, the mechanical heart, which is at the center of the main character, but it starts off in the sort of place where you start the game, but as you progress, the heart is in different locations as you're progressing through the game.
Okay,
so that's quite nice as well. So it does that reflected your progress on the title screen.
Yeah, and it's quite nice. Like if you're trying to get the achievements at the end, you have like an 100% sort of dial.
Yes.
And you can kind of go back to specific parts of the game. So
yeah,
when I wanted to find the specific moon ancestors, I can just look up what percentages is that, and then go back.
Yeah, because those puzzles are so self-contained, it has like steps. So it's like 1%, 3%, 5%, 6%, 8%.
Okay.
And you just go to them, and it's like you're at that puzzle because every puzzle is a self-contained moment in the game. That's how it does its save points.
Yeah, it's probably a good way for them to map it out as well when they're developing it. Like having it split into like all the different puzzles, they can sort of look at them as a whole and see how much they have, how much they've got through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to mention was about providing feedback to the player. We did talk a bit about this earlier, but just circling back to it, just simple things like if you walk onto a platform that you can interact with, your beetle guy will just start shaking.
Yeah, like wings will come out.
Yeah, he'll be like, so it's like, oh, I need to do something here almost.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how
it's the kind of show not tell. Like it's just showing that you can interact with this without saying press A to interact.
And I think that's the other thing I think with the graphic design of this as well is because the mechanical elements that can be interacted with are very clear.
Yeah.
They're not hidden within the environment. You're not searching for something going, what's going on here? It's like there's buttons on the floor, there's those sort of irises. When we the little sort of I don't know what you call them, sort of the platforms what you put the orbs on.
Yeah.
They're very, you walk up to and you press fire and it just chucks it on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, they're all obvious things to interact with.
Yeah. Like the environment is just so good with like tiny little things that are going on. Like when you walk up to the sort of white platform that lets you come out, you get these like weird feelers that pop out of the surface and they kind of interact to the player's presence. And there's a lot of that within the environment. So I noticed in a few areas you had like a bit where you're kind of walking through water and you have fish that are like going through the water. If you run up to them, they actually dart off in different directions.
They react to the player.
You have like plants and stuff that are in the ground and you walk over to them and they kind of pop back like.
Yes, that was cool.
There
was one section I got jump scared because I was just walking and then suddenly all these things darted off and I was like, whoa! That actually kind of made me jump.
And like even the sort of level objects as well, like the way like the bone bridges. I call them bone bridges, but they look like bones. Like the way they appear, like
it might have been ferns. Whatever they were inspired by.
Yeah, they're like these white things, aren't they?
Yeah,
they sort of the way they span out against each other. Or the way the platforms come together and turn on. Everything just feels like a combination of like
alive.
Biomechanical, organic.
Yeah.
It's this brilliant kind of combination. Nothing feels out of place.
Yeah.
From a design perspective, everything, even though it's all weird and strange and odd,
it just feels right.
Absolutely.
All made sense.
Like the opening, and I think they do it quite well because the opening location feels like Arizona.
Okay.
It has
desert.
It's just that like redstone
red,
kind of
that kind of look to it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of something. It's alien, but it's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they've done a really good job of setting the tone of the game to start with, going like, it's going to get weird, but we're going to start you somewhere. The mechanics are a bit odd and the play is a bit odd, but the location is something you can grasp. The location just looks like something you can get on Earth, and then you go into the green bit and it's all blobby and gooey.
But even then, like the next environment you get is like the
mechanical one,
the like industrial kind of
environment,
which is really cool as well.
So they ease you into these weird and weirder places. It gets stranger and stranger. But the way they start with it, with a sort of a very easy reference point that we can sort of identify and sort of go, oh, it doesn't feel too weird. It feels just like I'm walking around in a desert, with those big sort of red sandstone.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a clever way to introduce and ease the player into its more esoteric designs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One thing that I noticed that was cool, like right at the end, when you see all the planets and stuff, one of the planet's surface was like a fractal. So you know what fractals are, where it's like it's like a mathematical equation where it's like a load of circles that kind of infinitely grow, or like you can go into them infinitely, which works very well for a game where you're kind of going into worlds and out of worlds infinitely, sort of cool little design.
So you provided the player feedback with just like stuff that's not important to the gameplay, like the fish react to you, or like there's birds.
But it makes the world feel so alive.
Also, it reacts. It kind of gives you feedback for things that are important. So like the buttons that you start, your character like animates when you stand on a button that you can interact with, but also the security, the flying security key things. They flash.
They point towards your objective.
Yeah. So there's the game. It never, like, what I like about it is like it doesn't, like you said, there's no tutorial, there's no text telling you or voiceover. You're not talking, like nothing tells you what to do. It's just showing you. It's just like a little light flashing towards a direction, or it starts reacting when you go near the things that'll smush it.
Flashing fast.
It'll be like, no, don't take me over there. Then it's like, you get squashed. But sometimes you have to squash them for the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The environment stuff, just overall, the amount they've done with just shaders, really, because I think for the most part, like they're not really using detailed textures or high resolution textures or anything like that. It's just a lot of like really nice shapes and colors, and like the actual effects that you get with the different orbs and stuff. So like with the orange orb, you get this cool kind of like shard effect, which mirrors what is actually going on inside the world, because there's a load of orange crystals and stuff, and you get that cool kind of like splintering effect as you're walking across the bridge. You have that like ghosty ethereal effect for the pillars and stuff. I think with the purple one there's not really much for that, is there? Because it's just kind of those orbs that you get.
We didn't really talk about the purple one, did we? Because the purple one, the orbs and the things you have to interact with are constantly growing. And when you pick one up, you can pick one up and put it down, but if you pick up another one, the one you put down will be destroyed.
So it didn't use that a lot. It didn't compared to the other abilities, like the shooting one. I think
it's because you get it later.
One Last Worlds, really.
But even like the final few puzzles, you don't really do that.
Not much.
You kind of just use it to traverse to the next section a little bit more.
And it's a cool bit, but it's not as part of the game as the other three. Like the shooting one, you do that, and the ethereal ghost mist orb, you do that. The bridges, that comes back, keeps coming back, and just the different ways it found to make you use these abilities in different ways. So like the bridge one, there's like those puzzles where you have to put it on one of those drones and then make it follow you, but slowly, because it's carrying the orb, which is revealing the bridge. So if you walk too fast, you drop down.
That was one thing that kind of annoyed me a little bit. I wanted to like run across, but he was like, because you're walking in front of the drone, and the drone has a radius around it, so you have this really tiny bit of land that you can walk across, and I was like, can you just go a little bit faster?
See, patience. The game is teaching you patience. What you need to do.
But then it throws you at a boss fight. It's like, no, don't be patient at all. You need to think on your feet, think quick.
But you do need to be patient. You do need to be patient. That's the whole point.
You need to survive. You need to.
Anyway, let's hurry up and move on with the podcast.
That's why you took 15 goes to get through it, and I took 3.
I asked for feedback on, but again, I didn't get anything on. Cocoon, forgot the name of the game, but I had a one nice comment from Gary Heather, who put, I finished the Portal episode on my drive home. I was aware of the game but had not played it, but that did not stop me enjoying this podcast. I will probably rectify that by purchasing it on Steam.
Awesome.
So we've managed to get somebody to buy Portal, it looks like.
That's good. You should do. It's very good.
I am not sure how you will get an hour's episode out of 3D Monster Maze on the ZX81, but hey. So I'm guessing they're suggesting that game for a future episode.
You'd be surprised. I could probably talk about that for an hour. Terrifying.
Yeah, I said that's probably something that Adrian would choose. Also worth mentioning that we've had over 100 downloads, which doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of podcasts, but it's a milestone nonetheless, and we're on the way.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. So what the verdict then? Is Cocoon a game every designer should play?
I'll let you too, because I think it is, because I picked it.
I think it is. It introduces just like a really cool, unique mechanic, and I need to learn more about shaders.
I think it is. I don't know if I probably would have put Inside over Cocoon, maybe. but just for the sheer simpleness, I guess, and the way that it's, I think, well, visually it looks great, and the art direction it's great, and all this kind of world building it does. But again, this is something.
Cocoon or Inside?
Well, both of those.
Yeah,
It's something that these all these games seem to do. They just kind of show you these little intriguing elements of the world, but it doesn't. It's not upfront about what they are and what it's for.
Yeah.
Just lets you piece it together, or don't bother. Just let them be there in the world. It's
I love that kind of design.
Yeah, that's that I like.
Sorry, there is actually one last thing I did want to.
All right, okay,
just come back
to
rewind, and it is going back to the visual side of things. And I think it's how much character they get into things with the animations. The animations in the game are astonishing.
Yeah.
Really good. Nice. I mean, it's made in Unity as well, so we should actually mention that it is actually made in Unity. So it shows that it doesn't need to be. And what I like about this is it doesn't need to be photorealistic. It doesn't need that. But the animations within the objects, the bosses, the things that travel. When there's the moment sort of thing when you're flying through the sky through the thing.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so lovely with the music and everything, and the way it just works, and it just kind of, it's almost like I said, there's no cutscenes, but it is kind of cutscene, but it's not.
That's like a reward. It's like, it reminded me of the end of Journey. Yes. When you're flying, kind of start through it kind of does this after boss fights. It usually does that flying through.
Yeah, or a lot towards the end when you're sort of moving, you're getting more and more closer to the final sort of culmination of the game, and you're sort of doing those kind of final puzzles, and each one's sort of making you think, and you're shooting those black diamonds in the sky, and you're blasting them. But all the animations, the boss animations when they come alive, they sort of slither and it's just it's so good. The art design in this is so good.
It's amazing, and it's a nice contrast to like the previous games like Inside and Limbo, because they're really dark, kind of low saturation, and like this is like a really beautiful bright environment.
There's no hiding in this. There's no hiding the art. You can't get away. It's not like in Inside, it's like there's stuff in the dark, like the fish or Limbo's all, obviously Limbo is black and white, isn't it?
Silhouetted,
So in this it's all front and center, but it's just done so well.
So I think it is a game every designer should play for the art direction, the animation, but also just that kind of that use of the KISS rule, keep it simple. Stupid.
and just the notion of like controlled design. As a designer, you can see that they're in control of every element in this game all the time. You might not like that. You might like your sort of open world craziness of Grand Theft Auto. That's fair enough, but
it makes it feel so polished.
This is a game where they've sat and no one element of it has been left untouched. Like you said, the polish is just evident throughout.
Right, well that brings us to the end of the episode, which means it's time to announce the game we'll be talking about in the next episode. Have we got any speculation on David's choice, Adrian?
I'm going to say Hollow Knight.
You think it's Hollow Knight? Well, I mean, it's only a matter of time before you throw a Souls-like at me, isn't it? So it could be something along those lines. I'm not actually sure what your game's taste is. I know Adrian's, he likes like really old games on the
that's
spectrum.
Just on the Commodore 64, please. Spectrum.
Well, they're all one of those. But David, I'm like, I don't know. I can't really.
I played a lot of different types of games though. Maybe not as many horror games, but they've all done new.
All right.
So what do you think then?
You so remember, you have to say the game we'll be discussing the next
You haven't
episode.
said what you think he's going to
What I think?
Yeah.
A Souls-like.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't, like I say, I don't know I'm not sure what his tastes are. He mentioned he really liked The Witness earlier on. There's no way we could do another puzzle.
No.
Go on then.
Okay, so the game that we'll hopefully be playing on the next episode is Inscription.
All right. I haven't. Do you know this game?
I know it. I haven't played it. Is it by the same guy who did what was his other game? It's quite, everyone knows it. Did he do Undertale?
No.
Did he not?
Okay,
that's a different thing.
What is this game? I've never heard of it.
Inscription. It's a card game.
Yeah, it's a card game.
Is it a new one?
He did something before that. Before he did it.
You think you're talking about Toby Fox?
Is it? What did it? Wow, I can't remember. Yes.
No.
I'm gonna look now.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to Google this.
Right. So
go on.
You haven't played it.
No.
So don't search anything for now. That's all I'm saying. Because like,
it's on Game Pass, I think. So.
Yeah, I won't talk about it too much, but it's one of those games that you kind of just need to play blind.
Okay.
There's a few cool things that happen that it's worth just kind of leaving to the
aware of
experience.
I am aware of it.
I believe it took me
maybe
a little bit longer than Cocoon.
Okay.
So it's definitely doable to go through.
It's a single player card game.
Yes. But it's story based basically.
Okay.
So it's not just like you're gonna have to learn a whole new. I mean, you are kind of, but you're not gonna be doing Marvel Snap and playing against other players and things like that. I thought about picking
Marvel Snap, but
okay. How are we gonna talk about that for an hour? You gonna talk about all the strategy?
Me and Adrian could talk about Marvel Snap.
I'll just be sat here bored, just like yeah.
No, you'll get into it.
But Inscription is very cool.
Okay.
It's one of those games that people kept recommending to me for a while to play, and like telling me don't look at anything, just go through it blind, and like it's kind of difficult when people say that. Like it's hard to get excited for it, but just pick it up, download it.
What Inscription?
Inscription.
What did Toby Fox do after Undertale then?
Deltarune.
Oh, that was it.
It's like same characters but different universe. Yeah, because
Deltarune is an anagram of Undertale.
Yeah.
Oh, very
I did wonder. Yeah. I did think about it actually.
So it's another game I've not played.
There you go.
Putting us through our paces.
Yes.
I've not played Inscription, so it's one I've been looking at though, and thinking I've heard things about it, so I will. Yeah. I will luckily.
I think
give that a go.
You'll enjoy it.
Listen to the next episode where we'll be talking about Inscription. You can play along as well and email us your comments and questions on Inscription to shouldplaypodcast@gmail.com with the subject heading Inscription. Or even if you've just got general feedback about the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So if you're passionate about game design and liked the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like it, leave us a nice review, share on social media, all the usual stuff. It'd be really nice. I want to grow the numbers. So just tell other people, share it on your social media channels, and just try and encourage other people to kind of listen to it. If you've enjoyed it, of course. If you haven't enjoyed it, then just keep quiet about it.
Don't tell them it's bad.
Yeah, don't do that. There's a YouTube channel, Games Every Designer Should Play. At the minute, it's just outputting the podcast episodes, but maybe there's scope for us to put some video content on there at some point. So subscribe to that.
You could show your 15 attempts at the boss.
If I recorded it. Yeah. No, because I'm not a pretty sight when I'm getting.
We need to keep it
PG
at
a game. Yeah. Yeah, let's just say I've gone through a few controllers in my time. All right.
Never broken one.
Yeah, no.
But I nearly threw a Wii. Like the worst one was I nearly threw a Wii remote across the room because, I tried to throw it and I had that stupid wrist strap on, so I just felt really dumb. It was Super Mario Galaxy. There was like a planet which was like a donut, and then it's like it's like water based, and it was the way you have to collect the 8 different coins to get the star, and I had 7 of them, and it took me about half an hour because it took ages to get around this bloody thing, and then I fell off, and I was like, so I'm mad. Anyway.
It'd been better if you'd have tried to throw the remote control and it smacked you back in the face.
It just swings around my wrist. That's how I got this scar. So join in the conversation or suggest games that you'd like us to feature in future episodes. But all that's left for us to say now is thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.